I was dying. Not in the quick, merciful way some people are fortunate enough to experience. Not from a common disease or a battlefield wound. I was dying slowly, drained from the inside out, cell by cell, while the child in my womb did the only thing it knew how to do: survive. Aura hunger, the elders called it. An ancient curse that occurred when an alpha child was conceived and the father vanished. The baby searched for the father's presence, for the unique energy only he could provide, and when it couldn't find it, it began consuming the mother in search of a substitute that would never be enough. I was 6 months along when I realized what was happening. 7 when I accepted that Adrian would never answer my letters. 8 when I understood that either I forced a confrontation or I would die along with our son before the 9th month arrived. So I climbed the mountain. Every step was agony. My legs trembled beneath the weight of my swollen belly, and the weakness that took hold of me like creeping ice. My skin was so pale I could see the blue veins through it, a map of dry rivers where life used to flow. My black hair, once brilliant like raven wings, now fell in lifeless strands over my shoulders. But I kept going, because the alternative was giving up. And I hadn't crossed 3 kingdoms, weathered 2 storms, and survived a husband's betrayal just to give up in the final steps. Ironwood Fortress rose before me like a giant of gray stone, towers that touched the clouds, walls that seemed to have been carved from the mountain itself, and somewhere inside, he was, Adrian Blackthorn, my husband, the father of my child, the man who abandoned me without a word 3 years ago. I had come with a ritual dagger on my belt. The separation dagger, forged in moon silver and engraved with runes of bond breaking. My intention was simple: enter the throne room, place the blade on the table before him, and demand he cut our bond. Because if the bond no longer existed, perhaps, just perhaps, the aura hunger would cease. Perhaps my child would stop searching for a father who would never come and accept only what I could give, even if it killed me in the process. I did not expect what I would find when I passed through those gates. I did not expect the way his eyes would widen at the sight of my belly. I did not expect the moment when all color would drain from his face, leaving him as pale as I was. I did not expect him to rush down from the throne, tripping over his own feet in his haste, and fall to his knees before me. And I definitely did not expect what would happen when he touched my belly with trembling hands, and light exploded between us, warm and golden, healing wounds I thought were permanent. If you want to know how an abandoned queen became the salvation of a kingdom, and how an arrogant king learned that some bonds cannot be severed, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Come with me. This story begins with a death foretold, but I promise, it ends with life. Let me take you to the moment everything changed, to the day I returned to finalize my marriage, and discovered that some things are worth more than pride. The climb to the castle cost me the last reserves of strength I had. Every stone step felt like a mountain. Every gust of icy mountain wind cut through my cloak as if it were made of mist, not wool. But I kept going. The guards at the entrance recognized me. I saw it in their eyes. The shock, the barely disguised horror. Ravenna Valeris, the vanished queen, returning as a ghost of herself. One of them took a step forward, as if to stop me, but something in my expression made him retreat. "Announce my arrival to the king," I said, my voice firmer than my body suggested was possible. "Tell him his wife has come to settle unfinished business." The guard hesitated, then nodded and ran inside. The other stood watching me, uncomfortable, unsure whether he should offer aid or maintain distance. I did not wait for permission. I pushed open the heavy oak doors and stepped inside. The great hall of ironwood was exactly as I remembered it. Ancient tapestries on the gray stone walls, torches casting dancing shadows, the enormous fireplace in the back, always lit. And in the center, raised on a platform, the black iron throne where Adrian usually sat, surrounded by his advisors. He was there now. Even from a distance, even after 3 years, my body recognized his. The mate bond was like that. An invisible rope always pulling, always remembering. My skin tingled, my breath caught, and for a second, just 1 second, I wanted to run to him. But then I remembered. I remembered the unanswered letters, the nights waiting for messages that never came, The months alone, feeling life being sucked out of me while he lived his life as if I had never existed. The anger gave me strength. I straightened my shoulders, ignored the ache in my back, and walked. My steps echoed in the silence. Conversations ceased. Heads turned. And then, finally, Adrian looked up. Our eyes met across the hall. Forest green, as always. But there was something different in them now. Shadows that weren't there before. Lines of sleeplessness around them. He looked tired in a way that had nothing to do with lack of sleep. He rose from the chair slowly, as if he didn't believe what he was seeing. Ravenna, my name left him like a prayer, like a curse, like everything in between. I did not reply. I simply kept walking until I was at the foot of the platform. That was when a man stepped forward, blocking my path. Tall, lean, with gray hair pulled back, and eyes that seemed to assess every move. Counselor Victor. I remembered him. The man who always whispered in Adrian's ear, who always had an opinion, who always seemed to be present at important moments. "Your Majesty," he said, not to me, but to Adrian. "Surely it is inappropriate to allow an unannounced visitor to interrupt court proceedings." Visitor. He called me a visitor, in my own home. "Get out of my way, Victor," I said, my voice low but laced with venom. "The Queen no longer resides in Ironwood," he continued, still speaking to Adrian as if I wasn't there. "Her abandonment of duties makes this visit irregular." "Victor," Adrian's voice cut through the hall like a blade. "Step back. Now." The counselor hesitated, clearly displeased, but obeyed. He backed away, but not far. His eyes remained on me, cold, calculating. Adrian descended from the platform. Every step he took toward me made my heart beat faster, more painfully. The bond pulled. It sang. It begged for proximity. But I forced myself to stand still. He stopped 6 feet away, hands clenched into fists at his sides, as if fighting the urge to touch me. "You returned," he said, and there was so much in those 2 words. Relief, fear, confusion. "I came to settle what should have been settled years ago," I replied. I untied my cloak. The heavy fabric fell from my shoulders, pooling on the stone floor at my feet, and revealed what I had hidden during the entire journey. My belly, immense, undeniable, alive. The silence that fell over the hall was absolute, complete, as if every person had forgotten how to breathe. Adrian looked, blinked, looked again. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. Color drained from his face so quickly that I thought he might faint right there. "Ravenna," he finally whispered. "You are pregnant," I finished, my voice steady even though everything inside me was breaking. 8 months along. Your child, Adrian, conceived on the last night we spent together before you decided I was no longer needed in your life." He took a staggering step back as if I had struck him physically. "I didn't. I never." He was trembling now. "The letters. You didn't answer my letters. I thought you had left by choice. I thought, letters?" The word came out like a bark. "I wrote 342 letters in 3 years, Adrian. 342 times I begged you to answer. To come. To at least tell me why you had sent me away." "Sent away?" He looked genuinely confused. "Ravenna, I never... You were the one who left. You were the one who said you needed time. Space. I waited. I wrote every week for months until it became clear you didn't want to reply." We looked at each other. Slow, horrifying understanding beginning to form. Someone had lied. Someone had manipulated. Someone had deliberately destroyed our communication. But before we could process that, my body decided it had endured enough. The room spun. My legs gave out. Adrian moved faster than I had seen him move in years. He caught me before I hit the floor, strong arms enveloping me, pulling me against his chest, and the world exploded in light. Golden, warm, pulsating. It wasn't physical light, but something deeper. Bond magic, denied for so long, finally finding connection. I felt it on my skin, in my blood, in the cells that were starving. The pain that had been my constant companion for months simply vanished, replaced by warmth, by energy, by life flowing back into places that had been empty for too long. I gasped. My hands went to my belly, and I felt it. For the first time in weeks, I felt strong, healthy movement. My baby finally finding what it needed. The father's presence. The aura only he could provide. Adrian felt it too. His eyes widened, one hand going to my belly over mine. The baby kicked, as if recognizing the touch, as if saying, "Finally, you are here." Tears streamed down Adrian's face. He looked at me with an expression of pure horror, of devastating comprehension. "The aura hunger," he whispered. "Gods, merciful gods, you were, all this time, dying," I finished, my voice breaking. "I was dying, Adrian, and our son with me, because your presence, your touch, your damned aura is the only thing that can sustain an alpha baby while it's still in the womb." He pulled me closer, his face buried in my hair, his body trembling with sobs he tried and failed to contain. "I didn't know," he repeated like a mantra. "Ravenna, I swear, I didn't know. If I had known, I would have crossed 1,000 kingdoms. Nothing would have stopped me. I wanted to believe him. I wanted so badly to believe him. But 3 years of silence, of abandonment, of absolute solitude had created walls that would not crumble with a single touch, no matter how magical. I forced myself away. He resisted, but I pushed harder. "No," I said. "I won't let you do this. I won't let you come in, heal what you broke, and then abandon me again when you decide I'm inconvenient." "Ravenna." I took the separation dagger from my belt. The moon silver glinted under the torchlight. Ancient runes engraved on the blade seemed to pulse with their own power. I placed it on the nearest table with a metallic clatter that echoed through the silence. "You have 2 choices, Adrian," I said, my voice firm even though I was collapsing inside. "Either you take this dagger and cut our bond now, freeing our child from the need for your presence, or you assume the role you should have assumed months ago. There is no middle ground. There is no maybe. Choose." He looked at the dagger, then at me. His green eyes were wild, desperate, and then he did something that utterly shocked me. He picked up the dagger, but instead of using it as I expected, he hurled it across the hall. The blade spun in the air and buried itself in a tapestry 10 feet away, vibrating with the impact. "No," he said, his voice husky but determined. "I will not cut anything. You are my mate. He is my son. And I will not lose you both because of misunderstandings and the lies of others." He took a step toward me. "I will fix this. I will find out who betrayed us. I will ensure you and our child are safe, healthy, protected. Another step. And I will spend every second of the rest of my life proving that I deserve a second chance. Another step. And now we were so close I could feel the heat radiating from him. But first," he said, "I will do what I should have done the moment you appeared." And before I could protest, he swept me into his arms, holding me against his chest as if I weighed nothing. "Adrian, put me down." "No." He started walking toward the side exit of the hall. "You are exhausted, sick. You need immediate medical care, and I will not let pride or anger prevent what needs to happen. I don't need you." "Yes, you do," he interrupted, looking at me with an intensity that stole my breath. "And our child needs me. So you will let me take care of you both, not because I am ordering you, but because if you don't, you both will die. And I just got you back. I will not lose you again." I should have fought. I should have insisted on my independence. But the truth was, I was tired. So incredibly tired. And for the first time in months, I felt no pain. So I let him. I let him carry me through the familiar corridors. I let my head rest against his shoulder. I let, just for a moment, the bond sing its song of reunion. There would be time for anger later, time for questions, time for painful truths. But in that moment, I simply let myself be carried. Adrian took me directly to the royal apartments. Our apartments. The place I had left 3 years ago thinking it would be for a few weeks, never imagining it would be for so long. Everything was exactly as I remembered it. The dark green velvet curtains, the carved stone fireplace, the enormous bed with an oak canopy. Even my favorite perfume was still on the dressing table, as if he had expected my return at any moment. He placed me on the bed with infinite care, adjusting pillows behind me, pulling blankets over my legs. His hands trembled slightly, and I realized he was terrified. Not of me, but of hurting me, of doing something wrong. "I need to call Lady Isolde," he said, already turning toward the door. "The midwife is still here?" That surprised me. Isolde had been old when I left. I thought she would have retired, or worse. She insisted on staying, said she had a premonition. Adrian paused at the door, looking back. Now I understand why. He left, but not before hesitating, as if leaving the room were physically painful. The bond pulled. I felt it too. My body was already protesting the distance, the sudden absence of his aura after finally having it back. I was alone for only a few minutes before the door opened again. Lady Isolde entered, and my heart clenched at the sight of her. She was older, more stooped, leaning heavily on a cane. But her eyes, gray like storm clouds, still shone with sharp intelligence. "Child," she said, and there was so much in that word. Relief, concern, gentle reproach. "You should have come back sooner. I tried to write." "I know." She approached the bed, moving slowly but determinedly. "I suspected something was wrong when your letters stopped arriving. But I am just an old midwife. No one listens to my suspicions." Adrian entered behind her, followed by a man I recognized as Cale, the head of the guard. Tall, battle-scarred, with eyes that missed nothing. He had always been loyal to Adrian, I remembered. Isolde sat on the edge of the bed and placed her hands, warm and calloused, on my belly. She closed her eyes. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then she opened her eyes and looked directly at Adrian. "You almost killed them," she said, without preamble. "One more week, maybe 2, and both would have been lost." I saw Adrian stagger as if he had been struck. He gripped the edge of the fireplace, his knuckles white. "The aura hunger," Isolde continued, "is one of the cruelest forms of death a Luna can suffer. The alpha baby needs the father's presence. Not just occasional proximity, but constant presence, especially in the final months. The father's aura feeds the child's growing power." She looked at me. "Without it, the baby instinctively turns to the mother, trying to drain what it needs from her. But she cannot supply what only an alpha can give. So the child," Adrian could barely form the words, "was killing Ravenna trying to survive." "Yes, and she was letting it." Isolde gave me a stern look. "You should have come back sooner. Pride is not worth your life." "It wasn't pride," I said, my voice harsher than I intended. "It was survival. I didn't know if I would be welcomed. I didn't know if you wanted me here. Of course I wanted you." Adrian crossed the room in 3 strides. "Ravenna, every day, every damn day, I waited for some word from you, some sign that you would return. I wrote. I did too." "Then where are the letters?" Cale intervened, his voice calm but firm. Your Majesty, both of you claim to have written hundreds of times. So where is the correspondence?" Silence fell over the room. "The Raven Tower," I said slowly. "All letters go through the Raven Tower. It's overseen by Victor," Adrian finished, and there was venom in the word. "Victor has overseen all castle communications for 5 years. Cale and Adrian exchanged a loaded look. "I need to investigate," Cale said. "With your permission, Your Majesty. Go, and take trusted men. If Victor realizes we suspect, he will cover his tracks," Cale finished. "Understood." He left quickly, closing the door behind him. Isolde also rose, leaning on her cane. "I will prepare teas and ointments," she said, "to strengthen the mother and the baby. But the best medicine," she looked significantly at Adrian, "is the father's presence. You cannot leave her. Not for long periods. Not until the baby is born." "I don't intend to," Adrian said immediately. "Good." Isolde headed for the door, then stopped and looked back. "And Adrian? She is angry. She has a right to be. But anger won't heal either of you. Talk. Truly talk this time." Then we were alone. Adrian pulled a chair close to the bed and sat, elbows on his knees, head in his hands. He looked broken, and part of me wanted to comfort him. But the larger part, the part that had suffered alone for months, wanted him to suffer too. "Tell me," he finally said, "from the beginning, what happened after you left?" After you told me to leave, you mean? He raised his head. Ravenna, I swear by all that is sacred, I didn't send you away. You said you needed to visit your family, that your sister was ill. I asked if you wanted me to go with you, and you said no. Said you would return in 2 weeks. I blinked. My sister. Adrian, I don't have a sister. I am an only child. You know that. The confusion on his face was genuine. But the message, it came with your seal. Your handwriting. What message? I never wrote asking to leave. You woke me that morning and said you had arranged an escort to take me back to my old pack. Said it would be safer for me there, that enemies were moving against Ironwood. I never said that. Adrian stood up, beginning to pace. Ravenna, I would never send you away. You are my mate, my Luna. Why would I do that? You told me exactly that. Frustration built. You said it was temporary, until the threat passed. You promised you would send news. I waited, for weeks, then months. I wrote, and nothing. No answer. No explanation. He stopped pacing and looked at me. Someone manipulated us, skillfully, using our seal, our handwriting, our voices likely. They separated us and ensured neither of us knew the truth. Victor, I said, and the name tasted like ash. It seems likely. But why? What purpose does this serve? Before I could answer, the door opened abruptly. Kyle entered, his face grim, carrying a metal box. I found it, he said. Hidden in Victor's quarters, locked with magic. He placed the box on the table. Adrian opened it. Inside, hundreds of letters. Some with my seal, others with his. All undelivered, all intercepted. I picked one up in my handwriting. The date was 7 months ago. Adrian, I'm pregnant. Please answer me. I need you. The child needs you. Tears burned my eyes. Had he read that? Did he know? Adrian picked up another, in his writing. Ravenna, I don't understand your silence. Did I do something wrong? Please, come back. We'll talk. We'll solve anything. That one was 9 months ago. Soon after I left, we looked at each other across the room. The truth finally, horribly clear. He separated us, I whispered. Deliberately. Systematically. And it almost worked, Adrian said, his voice ragged. A few more weeks? Where is he? The question came out more like a growl. Where is Victor now? Gone, Kale said. As soon as I left the hall to investigate, he must have realized. His quarters are empty. But he can't have gone far. The castle is on lockdown. Find him, Adrian ordered. Search everywhere. Catacombs, towers, secret passages. He will answer for this. Kale nodded and left again. Adrian came back to me, sitting on the edge of the bed. He took my hand, intertwining our fingers. His skin was warm, rough with calluses, but gentle. 3 years, he said softly. 3 years we could have had together. 3 years of happiness stolen. 9 months, I corrected. That our child could have had their father. That I wouldn't have nearly died. Ravenna. His voice broke. How do you forgive me for this? I don't know if I do forgive you, I said honestly. Not yet. You should have come. Even without letters. Even without news. I am your mate. You should have sensed through the bond that something was wrong. He closed his eyes, pain crossing his face. I did sense it. God, I did. But Victor convinced me it was just distance. That bonds weaken when separated by choice. He said you had deliberately blocked your end. And you believed him instead of trusting your instinct. Yes. He opened his eyes. And that is my fault. Not his. Mine. I chose to believe the comfortable lie instead of the painful truth. We were silent for a moment. Then I felt it. A strong, almost violent movement in my belly. I put my free hand over it, feeling our child stirring, more active than it had been in weeks. Adrian saw and hesitated. May I? I could have said no. Could have denied him this moment. But despite everything, despite the anger and the hurt, he deserved to know his child. I guided his hand to where the movement was strongest. The baby kicked directly against his palm. The expression on Adrian's face was pure awe. Tears streamed down, unashamed. He is strong. She is, I corrected. I am sure it's a girl. She, he repeated, smiling through the tears. Our daughter. And in that moment, with his hand on our child, with the bond finally whole again, I felt something shift. Not complete forgiveness, not forgetting, but perhaps, just perhaps, the beginning of healing. The first few days were strange, uncomfortable, full of heavy silences and conversations that were too careful. Adrian did not leave the room. Literally. He canceled all council meetings, delegated responsibilities to Kale, and refused to move away from me for more than a few minutes. Isolde had been clear. My life and the baby's life depended on his constant presence, and Adrian took that as an absolute order. He slept in the chair beside the bed, ate meals in the room, worked on documents at the desk by the window while I rested, and every time I moved, every time I sighed, his eyes were on me, vigilant, worried. It was suffocating, and at the same time, comforting in a way I hated to admit. On the third day, Isolde arrived with trays of food that smelled better than anything I had eaten in months. Rich stew, fresh bread, fruits that must have cost a fortune this time of year. You must eat, she said, placing the tray on my lap. The baby is growing fast now that it has what it needs. Your body needs to keep up. I looked at the amount of food. This is for 3 people. It's for 2 people and an alpha child undergoing accelerated development, she corrected. Eat. Adrian approached the bed, his own meal in hand. May I? I nodded. He sat on the edge of the bed, not too close, but close enough that his aura enveloped me and the baby like an invisible blanket. We ate in silence for a few minutes. Then Adrian spoke. You like strawberries? I looked at him confused. What? Strawberries. You used to eat them for breakfast, with cream. I remember. He looked almost shy. I sent for some. They should arrive tomorrow. Something in my chest tightened. It was a small detail, insignificant, but he had remembered. Thank you, I said softly. He smiled, just slightly, and we continued eating. Later that night, after Isolde left and the candles were extinguished except for one near the fireplace, I woke up feeling discomfort. Not pain, but that constant pressure in my back that had become my companion these past months. I shifted, trying to find a better position. I groaned softly without realizing it. Adrian was at my side instantly. Ravenna? What's wrong? Nothing, just my back, the weight. I tried to sit up. I can't get comfortable. Let me help. Before I could protest, he was behind me, large, warm hands settling on my lower back. He began to massage, fingers finding points of tension with surgical precision. I should have said no, should have maintained distance, but it felt so good that I couldn't form the words. Here? He asked, pressing a particularly tight spot. Yes, I sighed, letting my head fall forward. Exactly there. He worked in silence, hands firm but gentle, and slowly, the tension began to dissolve. I used to do this, he said softly, in the first months after we married. You always complained about back pain after long rides. I remember, I admitted. You wore that scent, jasmine and something else. I could never identify it. Verbena, he repeated, as if savoring the word. I missed it. The scent. You. I didn't know what to say, so I said nothing. I just let his hands work, and for the first time in months, I felt something other than pain or anger. I felt peace. The days began to follow a rhythm. Waking up with Adrian already awake, watching me sleep with an expression I couldn't decipher. Breakfast together. Him reading reports while I rested, or worked on embroidery that Isolde had brought to keep my hands busy. He started talking more. Small things. About the kingdom. About changes he had implemented. About how he had handled a border dispute with diplomacy instead of war. Something he said he would never have considered before. You made me better, he admitted one afternoon. More patient, more willing to listen. When you left, I reverted to old habits. Force first, questions later. And now? Now I try to remember what you would say, how you would resolve things. He looked at me. Kale says I'm going soft. I say I'm finally maturing. I smiled despite myself. Soft is not a word I would use for you. No? He raised an eyebrow. Then what word would you use? I thought for a moment. Stubborn. overly protective, unable to follow medical orders to rest. He had insisted on sleeping in the chair, refusing to use the bed even when I offered half, said he didn't want to make me uncomfortable. But I saw the fatigue marks deepening around his eyes. "I am resting," he protested. "You are sleeping sitting up. That is not rest." "I'm fine. Adrian," I sighed. "The bed is large enough for two, and you need proper sleep. Isolde said your aura weakens when you are exhausted." He hesitated, clearly tempted. "I won't bite you," I said. "I promise to keep my distance. It's not that. I don't want you to feel pressured. Pressured to let you sleep like a normal person? Adrian, just accept it." So that night, for the first time in 3 years, we shared a bed. He stayed on the far side, so close to the edge that any movement would dump him on the floor. I stayed on my side, surrounded by support pillows. We did not touch. But his presence, the sound of his breathing, his aura enveloping the space, everything was familiar in a way that made my heart ache. I slept better that night than I had in months. I woke up in the middle of the night feeling movement. For a moment of panic, I thought something was wrong. But then I realized it was just the baby, extraordinarily active, kicking and stirring as if dancing. I placed my hand over my belly, feeling every movement. Our daughter was strong, healthy, and for the first time, I truly believed she would survive. "Is she all right?" Adrian's voice came from the darkness. He had woken up too. "She's perfect," I whispered. "Just very energetic for 3 a.m. "Can I feel?" I should have said no. But hearing the cautious hope in his voice, seeing how he respected my boundaries, even when clearly yearning for connection, something in me gave way. "Come here," I said. He moved across the bed, still careful, and stopped when he was close enough to touch. I took his hand and placed it over where our daughter was most active. She responded immediately, kicking right against his palm. Adrian laughed, the sound genuine and full of awe. "She is strong." "Your daughter," I said. "Of course she is." He stayed there, hand over my belly, feeling every movement. And then, so softly I almost didn't hear him, he began to speak. "Hi, little one. It's me. Your father. I'm sorry I wasn't here sooner, but I'm here now, and I will be here for everything. I promise." My throat closed. Tears burned my eyes. "Your mother is the strongest person I know," he continued. "She carried you alone when I failed. She fought for you when it would have been easier to give up. And I will spend the rest of my life trying to be half the father she already is as a mother." A tear streamed down my face. Adrian must have felt or seen it, because he looked up, instant concern in his eyes. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to." "No," I said. My voice choked. "You didn't do anything wrong. It's been a long time since someone acknowledged what I went through. Since anyone saw." He moved closer, lifting his free hand to wipe away my tears. "I see. And I am sorry. So infinitely sorry for making you go through that alone. You didn't know. But I should have. Bond or no bond, letters or no letters, I should have realized something was terribly wrong. And I didn't, because it was easier to believe you had left me by choice than to face the possibility that you needed me and I wasn't there." We looked at each other in the darkness, only illuminated by the faint glow of the fireplace. And for the first time, I truly saw him. Not the king, not the man who abandoned me, but the terrified father, the broken mate, the man who was trying desperately to fix something he hadn't even known he broke. "Adrian," I said softly, "I don't know if we can go back to what we were. Too much has happened. Too much pain. I know. But maybe," I continued, "we can build something new. Not based on the past, but on what we choose now." He nodded slowly. "I accept that. Anything you give me, I accept." I took his hand, still on my belly, and squeezed it. "Then stay. Not because the bond demands it. Not because the baby needs it, but because you choose to." "I choose to," he said immediately. "Today, tomorrow, always." And there, in the middle of the night, with our daughter dancing between us, we started anew. Not a return, but a new beginning. The change began subtly. so subtly that I didn't notice it at first. Adrian was reading reports by the window when his hand shook. Just a little. The paper slipped from his fingers, fluttering to the floor. "Adrian," I called from the bed. "I'm fine," he said, but his voice was rougher than normal. "Just tired." But it wasn't just tiredness. Over the next few days I saw it. The increasing paleness, the shadows under his eyes deepening, how he leaned on furniture when walking, a movement so subtle that someone who didn't know him wouldn't notice. And me? I was feeling better, stronger. With each passing day, the energy returned. My skin regained color. The baby grew robust and healthy. But Adrian was wasting away. "Isolde," I said when she came to check on the 5th day. "Something is wrong." The old midwife examined Adrian with sharp eyes. She touched his forehead, checked his pulse, smelled his aura with that peculiar way that ancient healers had. Her face grew dark. "This is not natural," she said. "The healing of a bond should not drain the father. It should balance. Something is interfering." "Interfering how?" Adrian asked, trying to sound nonchalant and failing completely. "Magic. Dark magic." Isolde turned to me. "Do you feel anything different? Any change in how the energy flows?" I closed my eyes, focusing on the bond. And then I felt it. It was as if the energy wasn't flowing naturally from Adrian to me and the baby. It was as if it were being sucked, forced, drained in a much greater quantity than necessary. "There's something pulling," I said, "like a whirlpool, taking much more than it should." "A reversal ritual," Isolde whispered, horror in her voice. "Someone is trying to invert the natural flow, force his life into you at a lethal speed." "Why would anyone do that?" Adrian stood up, staggering slightly. "What purpose does it serve?" Cale entered at that moment, his face tense. "Your Majesty, we have news. Victor was spotted in the catacombs. Guards pursued him, but he disappeared into a section we thought had been sealed decades ago." "The ancient catacombs," Adrian said, "where the sorcerers performed rituals before they were banished." "He's down there," I said, comprehension hitting me. "Performing the ritual. Trying to kill you by draining your life into me." "But why?" Cale asked. "What gain is there in that?" Isolde spoke, her voice grim. "If the king dies, the queen takes over as regent until the heir reaches age. But if the queen is weak, vulnerable, newly widowed, and with a newborn baby, she would need advisors," I completed. "Advisors who would manipulate her, who would control the kingdom through her. And eventually through the heir," Adrian added, leaning heavily on the table. "Victor was always ambitious. I just didn't realize how far he would go." "We need to stop him," Cale said. "Now, before the ritual is complete." Adrian tried to take a step and nearly fell. Cale caught him, supporting the king's weight. "You cannot go," Isolde said firmly. "The more you move, the faster he drains you. You need to stay here, conserve energy." "I won't stay here while that traitor—" "You will," I interrupted, getting out of bed. My legs were steady for the first time in months. The energy stolen from Adrian strengthened me, and hatred for that truth burned within me. "Because if you die, that saves no one. I will go." "Ravenna, no. You are pregnant, you can't." "I am strong," I said, and it was true. Artificially strong, stolen from him, but strong nonetheless. "And I know what to look for. The separation dagger." "Where is it?" Cale frowned. "Still embedded in the tapestry where the king threw it." "Fetch it. Now." As Cale rushed out, I turned to Adrian. He was white as paper, trembling, but his eyes still burned with protest. "Ravenna, you can't." I kissed him. Hard, fast, desperate. When I pulled away, I placed both hands on his face. "You said you would stay, that you would fight, then fight by staying alive. Let me do this." I turned to Isolde. "Can you stabilize him?" "I can try. But if the ritual isn't stopped soon—" "It will be," I promised. Cale returned, the separation dagger in hand. The moon silver shone, runes pulsing with power. I took it, feeling the familiar weight. "Can this cut magic?" I asked Isolde. "It was made to cut bonds. Bond magic is the strongest there is. If anything can sever a blood ritual, it is this. Then I will use it. I looked at Kale. Lead me to the catacombs. And bring men. Victor won't surrender peacefully. We descended the spiral staircases, each step taking us deeper into the castle's bowels. The air grew colder, damper. Torches on the walls cast distorted shadows that seemed to move on their own. I could feel the baby stirring restlessly, as if sensing the danger. I placed a protective hand over my belly. "It's going to be all right, little one," I whispered. "Mama will ensure it." We reached a section where the wall had been recently blasted open. Stones were still scattered, revealing a dark passage beyond. "There," Kyle said low. "He must be down there." We entered. The passage opened into a circular chamber, and in the center, Victor. He was kneeling on the floor, hands over a circle of runes drawn in blood. Black candles surrounded the circle, their flames burning sickly green. And in the air, I could feel it, the constant sucking of energy. Victor looked up when we entered. He didn't seem surprised, just annoyed. "Ravenna, how inconvenient." "End the ritual," I said, keeping my voice steady. "Now." "Why would I do that? It's working perfectly. In a few more hours, Adrian will be dead. You will be a vulnerable widow. And I will finally have the power I deserve." "You deserve nothing," I spat. "You are a traitor, a manipulator, a murderer." "I am a visionary," he corrected, rising. Adrian was weak, sentimental. Under my counsel, he could have been great, but he chose to listen to his heart instead of reason. He chose peace instead of conquest. He spat the last word like a curse. So I decided a new ruler was necessary, an heir I would mold from the cradle. "You will never touch my daughter." He smiled. "We shall see." Victor raised his hands. Shadows burst from the circle, taking semi-solid forms, claws and teeth of pure darkness. Kale and his men surged forward, but the shadows threw them against the walls like rag dolls. I gripped the separation dagger tighter. The silver heated in my hand, responding to my need. "That dagger cannot harm me," Victor sneered. "It was made to cut bonds, not flesh." "I know," I said, advancing. "It's not you I'm going to cut." I ran. Not toward Victor, but toward the circle, toward the blood runes glowing with stolen magic. Victor realized too late. No. I plunged the dagger straight into the center of the circle. The silver met magic, and cut. The sound was like shattering glass mixed with a scream. The runes exploded in blinding light. The circle broke, lines of power unraveling, dissipating. The drainage from Adrian stopped instantly. I felt it through the bond, the horrible pressure gone, replaced by normal, healthy flow. But the blast of energy threw me backward. I slammed against the stone wall, pain exploding in my back. I fell to the ground, gasping. Victor roared in fury. Without the ritual, he no longer had his shadows. Without his shadows, he was just a man. And Kale and his guards were many. They surrounded him, swords drawn. Victor tried to run, but there was nowhere to go. "Arrest him," Kale ordered, "for treason, attempted murder, and forbidden sorcery." As they dragged Victor away, struggling and shouting threats, Kale came to me. "Your Majesty, are you hurt?" I was trying to stand when I felt it. Warm liquid running down my legs. Not blood. Something else. And then the pain came. Not the pain of the fall. Different pain. Deep. Rhythmic. Familiar from stories other women told. "No," I whispered. "Not now. It's too early." But my body didn't care about calendars. The magic, the stress, the violent rupture of the ritual. Everything had triggered the inevitable. Labor. My daughter was coming. Now. The pain was like nothing I had ever experienced. It wasn't just physical. It was primal. My body knowing it was time, no matter that it was too early, too dangerous, in the wrong place. "I need to take her back," Kyle said, starting to lift me. "There's no time," I gasped between contractions. "The baby is coming fast." "Catacombs are no place for childbirth," he protested, but I could see the panic in his eyes. He was a warrior, not a midwife. "Then someone fetch Isolde," I screamed, another contraction doubling me over. "And Adrian. I need..." I need him here. One of the guards ran upstairs. The others stayed, clearly uncomfortable but loyal, forming a protective perimeter around me. I tried to breathe as Isolde had instructed me weeks ago. Deep, steady, but fear made it impossible. My daughter shouldn't be born like this. Not in the cold catacombs. Not weeks ahead of schedule. Not after all the trauma we endured. Please, I whispered, unsure if to the gods, to the baby, or to myself. Please hold on, just a little longer. I heard footsteps on the stairs. Many footsteps. And then Adrian was there, pale and staggering but alive, Isolde right behind him leaning on her cane. Ravenna. Adrian fell to his knees beside me, hands immediately going to my face, my belly. What happened? You are... Labor, Isolde said, already taking control. Triggered by the shock and the magic. Boys, step out. Everyone except the king and Kale. I need space and hot water, now. Guards dispersed. Some left completely. Others ran to fetch what Isolde asked for. Isolde examined me quickly. The baby is positioned correctly, thank the gods. But it's coming fast. Ravenna, when the next contraction comes, you will push. I'm not ready, I said, my voice breaking. It's too early. She's not ready. She is coming anyway, Isolde said gently but firmly. So we will ensure she arrives safely. Adrian held my hand, intertwining our fingers. I'm here. You are not alone. The next contraction came like a wave, dragging me under. I screamed, squeezing Adrian's hand with force that probably hurt. I pushed, as Isolde ordered, every muscle tensing. Good, Isolde encouraged. Again on the next one. Time lost meaning. There was only pain, breath, pushing. Adrian's voice in my ear, constantly murmuring encouragement, love, promises. His hands holding mine, his aura enveloping me, strengthening me. And then, through the fog of exhaustion and pain, I heard it. Footsteps. Many footsteps. Coming from the shadows of the catacombs. Not the guards returning. Something different. Hostile. Kale turned, sword already drawn. Show yourselves. Figures emerged from the darkness. Armed men, wearing symbols I recognized. Victor's loyalists. Mercenaries he had kept hidden, waiting. Victor may be captured, their leader said, but his plans continue. Kill the king, capture the queen and the heir. Over my dead body, Kale growled, placing himself between them and us. But they were many. 10, 15, and Kale only had 3 guards with him. Adrian tried to get up, to go help, but Isolde shoved him down. You stay, she ordered. Your mate needs you here. Her aura is unstable. If you move away now, we may lose both mother and child. Adrian looked between me and the battle beginning, agony on his face, torn between protecting his family and being present for his daughter's birth. Go, I gasped. Adrian, go. I can handle it. No, he said fiercely. I will not leave you again. Not now. Another contraction. Worse than the others. I screamed, and the sound echoed through the stone catacombs. The battle erupted. Kale and his men against the mercenaries. The sound of metal against metal, of screams and snarls, filled the air. So close. Dangerously close. Push, Isolde ordered. Ravenna, she's almost here. One more time. I gathered strength I didn't know I had. I pushed with everything I had left. I felt something give way, the pressure changing. And then Isolde said the most beautiful words I had ever heard. The head is out. One more, Ravenna. Just one more. One of the mercenaries got past Kale, running toward us. Adrian leaped up, unarmed, but not needing to be. He partially shifted, claws sprouting, eyes glowing gold. He intercepted the man with 10 feet to spare, claws tearing through armor like paper. The mercenary fell, but the movement cost him. Adrian stumbled, still weak from the ritual, nearly falling. Adrian! I screamed. He looked back, and in that moment of distraction, another mercenary attacked. The blade came down. Kale appeared from nowhere, blocking the blow, shoving the attacker back. Protect your family, Your Majesty. We'll hold them here. Adrian rushed back to me, falling to his knees, taking my hand again. I'm sorry. I'm here. Last one, Isolde said. On the next contraction, you give it everything. Understand? Everything. I nodded, breathless. The contraction came, and I pushed. I pushed through the pain, through the fear, through the sound of battle around us. I pushed with love for this child I hadn't yet met, with anger for everything they had tried to take from us, with determination that my daughter would be born alive and strong and free. And then, cutting through everything, a sound, a cry, sharp, furious, absolutely perfect. It's a girl, Isolde said, a rare smile crossing her face as she lifted the baby. A perfect, healthy girl. Tears burst from my eyes. From Adrian's too. Isolde placed our daughter on my chest, still connected by the cord, skin against skin, and the whole world stopped. She was tiny, covered in vernix and blood and absolutely beautiful. Damp black hair plastered to her head, eyes squeezed shut against the light, screaming with lungs that proved her strength. Hi, little one, I whispered, touching her cheek with a trembling finger. Hi, I finally meet you. Her crying changed something in the air, not physically, but magically, spiritually, as if her arrival had cut through all the remaining malice in the catacombs. The mercenaries felt it too. They hesitated, and in that hesitation, Kale and the guards overpowered them. One by one, they fell or surrendered. The battle ended as quickly as it began. Silence fell, broken only by our daughter's diminishing cries as she calmed against my warmth. Adrian looked at her with an expression of absolute awe. His hands hovered over us, as if he feared to touch, as if she were too fragile. You can hold her, I said softly. She is yours too. With infinite care, he took our daughter in his arms. She seemed even smaller against his broad chest. So fragile, so precious. She opened her eyes then, and they were green, dark forest green, just like his. Alara, he said, his voice rough with emotion. Her name is Alara. Alara, I repeated, savoring it. It means light of the dawn. Because she brought light back into our lives. Adrian kissed her forehead, tears streaming down unashamed. My daughter, my little Alara. Isolde worked silently, taking care of everything that came after the birth. When she finished, she sat down heavily, clearly exhausted. You are lucky, she said. Mother and baby are stable, but you need proper care. No more catacombs. I wholeheartedly agree, Adrian said. He gently returned Alara to me, then scooped me up, baby and all. Let's go home. Our home, where we belong. He carried me through the catacombs, up the stairs, with Kale and guards flanking us. Behind us, we could hear the mercenaries being dragged away, bound, taken to join Victor. But that didn't matter now. Nothing mattered except the three of us. A family, finally, whole. When we emerged into the castle's main hall, servants and nobles were waiting. News had spread. Of the attack, of the battle, of the birth. They bowed as we passed. Not just to Adrian, but to all of us. To the king, to the queen, and to the little princess who had chosen to be born in the midst of chaos and yet survived. 3 weeks later, I stood on the balcony of the royal apartments, watching the sun rise over Ironwood. Alara slept in my arms, wrapped in soft blankets, completely oblivious to the world that had nearly destroyed her before she was born. She had grown in these weeks, gaining weight, her cheeks becoming plump and pink, healthy, perfect, alive. Strong arms wrapped around me from behind, careful not to disturb the baby. Adrian rested his chin on my shoulder, looking at our daughter with the same expression of adoration he had worn since the moment he saw her. You should be resting, he murmured. I've rested for 3 weeks. If I stay in bed any longer, I'll forget how to walk. He laughed softly, the sound vibrating through his chest against my back. Isolde said 1 more week of complete rest. Isolde says many things. I leaned into him, soaking up the warmth, the solidity. But I admit, it's nice having you as a private nurse. Nurse? He feigned offense. I prefer devoted servant. And he had been. In these 3 weeks, Adrian had barely left our room. He fed Alara when she didn't want to nurse, changed diapers without complaint, walked with her during midnight crying fits, singing lullabies in a surprisingly soft voice. And he cared for me with devotion that went beyond obligation. "Today is the day," I said softly. "I know." His voice grew more serious. "Are you sure you want to go?" "I need to go. I need to see it with my own eyes." Victor's trial would be today, public, as treason demanded, and his execution soon after. Part of me didn't want to go, wanted to stay here, in this bubble of peace we had built. But another part, the part that almost died, that almost lost everything, needed closure. "Then we will go together," Adrian said, "as a family." The great hall was packed. It seemed every inhabitant of Ironwood had come to witness. Nobles in the front rows, servants and soldiers behind, all waiting to see justice served. Adrian sat on the throne, wearing the crown and full armor, every inch a king, but his hand held mine, intertwining our fingers, reminding everyone that he did not rule alone. I stood beside him, wearing a Luna dress, Alara sleeping in a sling against my chest. Kyle had argued that babies did not belong at trials, but Adrian insisted. Our daughter had nearly been killed before she was born. She deserved to see the responsible party face consequences. Victor was brought in chains. He looked smaller somehow, shrunken, all the arrogance drained during weeks in the dungeon. Adrian stood up. The hall instantly fell silent. "Victor Ashmore," his voice echoed, cold and ruthless. "You are accused of treason against the crown, attempted murder of your king and queen, forbidden magical manipulation, and conspiracy to kidnap a royal heir. How do you answer these charges?" Victor raised his chin, some remnant of pride returning. "Everything I did was for the good of the kingdom. You were weak, Adrian, controlled by emotions. I merely tried to—" "You tried to kill me." Adrian cut him off. "You tried to kill my mate and my daughter. You tried to steal the throne through murder and manipulation." He descended the steps slowly, each step deliberate. "You did not act for the kingdom. You acted out of ambition, out of envy, out of everything that is rotten in the soul of small men. I served your father for 20 years, and betrayed him for 20 more, hiding your corruption under a facade of loyalty." Adrian stopped before him. "But no more. Your reign of shadows is over." He turned to the hall. "Does anyone here speak in defense of this man?" Silence, absolute and damning. "Then by unanimous consent and for the crimes confessed through irrefutable evidence," Adrian declared, "Victor Ashmore is found guilty. The sentence is death, to be executed immediately." Victor opened his mouth, likely to beg or threaten, but Kale was already there, pulling him away. His screams echoed through the corridors, diminishing until they fell completely silent. Adrian returned to the throne. To me, his hand found mine again. "It's over," he said softly. "Truly over." And it was. The threat eliminated, the betrayal punished, the family safe. But there was still one thing. "Adrian," I said, loud enough for the hall to hear, "there is one piece of unfinished business that needs to be settled." Confusion crossed his face. "Ravenna?" I stood up, pulling something from the pocket of my dress. The separation dagger, restored and polished after the battle in the catacombs. Murmurs ran through the crowd, some worried, others curious. I held the dagger by the blade, offering the hilt to Adrian. "When I came to Ironwood," I said, my voice clear, "I had one intention: to cut our bond, to end our marriage, to free us both from something I thought was broken beyond repair." Adrian was frozen, looking at the dagger as if it were a venomous snake. "But I was wrong," I continued. "Our bond wasn't broken. It was merely dormant, waiting for us to choose to awaken it." I placed the dagger on the table beside the throne. "So today, before everyone, I make a different choice." I turned to Adrian, taking both his hands. "I choose you, not because the bond demands it, not because our baby needs it, but because I love you. I love the man who carries our daughter at 3 a.m. I love the king who learns to listen before judging. I love the mate who stood by me through the worst and chose to rebuild instead of giving up." Tears streamed down his face now, unashamed. "Ravenna, I'm not finished," I said, smiling through my own tears. "Adrian Blackthorn, do you accept me, Ravenna Valeris, as your renewed mate? Not by the ancient ceremony, but by conscious choice? Do you promise to love not just the Luna, but the woman? Do you promise that if problems arise, we will talk instead of silencing? That we will build together instead of drifting apart?" He couldn't speak. He just nodded, violently, tears continuing to fall. "Then," I said, turning to Isolde, who watched from the front row with a rare smile, "I would like you to conduct our renewal of vows. Here, now, before everyone." Isolde stood up, leaning on her cane, but there was joy in her ancient eyes. "It would be my honor." She climbed the steps slowly. Adrian and I stood hand in hand, Alara still sleeping between us, oblivious to the moment shaping her future. "Adrian Blackthorn," Isolde began, "do you accept Ravenna Valeris as your mate, not by tradition but by free choice?" "I do," he said, his voice husky but firm. "Today, tomorrow, for all the days remaining to me." "And do you promise to honor her not just as Luna, but as an equal?" "I promise." With every breath, Isolde turned to me. "Ravenna Valeris, do you accept Adrian Blackthorn as your mate, not by obligation but by free love?" "I do, completely." "And do you promise to trust him with your truths, even the difficult ones?" "I promise, always." Isolde smiled. "Then, by the power vested in me by the ancient gods and the land that sustains us, I declare you united, not for the first time, but for the better time, because bonds forged in choice are stronger than those born only of destiny." Adrian pulled me to him, kissing me with a tenderness that held promises of 1,000 tomorrows. Ilara, squeezed between us, protested softly, and we separated laughing. The hall erupted in cheers and howls of celebration, and as I looked at our people, our family, our future, I knew we were finally where we were meant to be. That night, in the privacy of our apartments, Adrian and I stood by the window, Alara finally resting in her crib after an epic battle against sleep. "You know," Adrian said, holding me from behind, "I kept something." "Kept what?" He pulled something from his pocket. A yellowed envelope. Broken seal. My handwriting. "The first letter you wrote me," he said. "The one Victor intercepted. Kale found it in the box. I read it. 1,000 times. I took it, recognizing my young handwriting. "Adrian, something wonderful has happened. I'm pregnant, with your child. Our child. Come back to me. Let's celebrate together. I love you. I will always love you." My vision blurred. "You kept it. It was all I had of you for so long." He kissed my hair. "But now I have you for real, and our daughter, and a future we almost lost." "But we didn't lose it," I said, turning in his arms. "We fought. We survived. And now finally we live." He kissed me. Slow. Deep. Promising a love that no longer needed words. And when we separated, I walked to the fireplace. I held the letter over the flames. "What are you doing?" Adrian asked. "Letting go," I said. "The pain. The past. Everything that kept us apart." The letter caught fire. Ashes floated up the chimney, carrying away 3 years of solitude and heartache. "Now," I said, returning to his arms, "we only have the present. And all the tomorrows." Adrian held me tight. "All the tomorrows," he echoed. "Starting with this one. And there, with our daughter sleeping peacefully, with the kingdom finally at peace, with love chosen instead of merely destined, we began again. Not as we were, but as we chose to be. Together." Thank you for being here and for joining me for another story. I truly hope you enjoyed it. If you want, leave your comment. I love reading what you feel and think after each episode. Thank you for the love, and see you in the next story.